Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. Have you ever scrolled through social media or even overheard a conversation at your local market and wondered if the cooking oil you're using or the fats in your favorite takeout are secretly undermining your health? It's a question that has ignited quite the firestorm, really. Claims ranging from, these oils are toxic, to, they cause widespread inflammation. You hear prominent critics, wellness influencers, even figures like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. sounding the alarm bells about seed oils or vegetable oils. It's enough to make you second-guess every single meal. Well, The Economist recently weighed in on this very debate, cutting through a lot of that noise with a pretty clear stance. Today, our mission isn't just to summarize their perspective. We're going to critically unpack their central argument, layering in deeper context, maybe some contrasting perspectives and practical nuances that often get overlooked in the broader discussion. We're here to help you understand not just what the science says, but why it matters for your plate.
That's right. And The Economist's core conclusion that seed oils are not dietary villains and are generally healthier than many animal fat alternatives, especially when it comes to heart risk, that aligns with a significant body of modern evidence. It really does. However, like any complex topic, there are crucial details, regulatory differences, and deeper implications worth exploring if we want a truly informed understanding. We'll delve into where some common narratives fall short, perhaps, and where the conversation needs to get a little more sophisticated.
Okay, let's jump straight into the first major criticism then. This idea leveled against seed oils, that they're processed with harmful chemicals, specifically hexane. The Economist article reassures us that after filtration and heating, any trace hexane remaining is considered toxicologically insignificant for typical consumption. And for many, maybe that's the end of the discussion.
But here's a crucial layer to consider, I think. While The Economist correctly indicates minimal practical risk, the regulatory landscape isn't quite so uniform globally. It's interesting. In the U.S., federal toxicology profiles primarily focus on inhalation risks for hexane, right?
Right, breathing it in.
Exactly. And they find little basis for chronic oral risk at typical consumer levels. They largely rely on the processing itself to bring levels down to near zero. However, the European Union takes a different philosophical approach. They actually cap residual hexane in oils at a specific 1 milligram per kilogram.
Oh, okay, a hard number.
A hard number. And this isn't just about different numbers on a spreadsheet. It really highlights fundamentally different philosophies of food safety. The EU often leans on what's called a precautionary principle, establishing explicit caps even for low-risk compounds. The US, on the other hand, typically relies on a risk-based assessment. The thinking is, if processing effectively minimizes exposure, a specific MRL, a maximum residue limit, isn't strictly necessary for oral consumption.
So different ways of ensuring safety, essentially.
Exactly. And this difference shapes how consumers globally perceive and trust their food supply. It gives us a deeper understanding of why the seemingly minor details spark such debates sometimes.
Okay, that's a clear distinction in regulatory approaches.
Yeah.
But for the average person listening, does a 1 milligram per kilogram cap in the EU versus no specific MRL in the US actually translate to a noticeable difference in their daily health risk? Or is this mostly, like you said, a bureaucratic or philosophical distinction?
For the vast, vast majority of consumers, it's primarily a regulatory and philosophical distinction.
Yeah.
The actual levels of hexane in refined oils, even without a specific U.S. cap, are typically so low, really practically negligible. The point isn't that U.S. oils are somehow unsafe, but that the discussion around processing isn't entirely black and white for regulators across the globe. It's got these layers. And look, for those who really want to avoid solvents entirely, opting for expeller press or extra virgin oils is always an option.
Right.
Though, as we've said, the health risk from typical refined oils is, for most people, probably a rounding error.
That makes a lot of sense. So while fears about hexane are often overblown, the regulatory differences show us this isn't a black and white issue, but one of, well, nuanced approaches to safety. Speaking of nuance, let's move to the second major criticism. This one hits right at the heart of daily diet debates. The claims that omega-6 fatty acids, particularly linoleic acid found in seed oils, are pro-inflammatory and cause chronic diseases. The Economist article directly tackles this. It cites randomized trials showing that increasing linoleic acid had no effect on inflammatory markers in participants' bodies. In fact, it seems it can even break down into anti-inflammatory compounds.
Yeah, that's a key finding they highlight.
And the article goes further, pointing out that large studies generally link higher omega-6 intake to lower cardiovascular disease, or CVD, and total mortality risk. This aligns perfectly with long-standing guidance from organizations like the World Health Organization and the American Heart Association, right? They recommend replacing saturated fats with polyunsaturated fats, PUFAs, to lower LDL cholesterol and reduce heart attack risk.
Absolutely. And zooming out a bit, while it's absolutely true that increased linoleic acid doesn't necessarily raise those specific inflammatory markers they measured, the Economist piece does perhaps glide past a crucial nuance for the broader population: the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio.
The ratio. You hear about that a lot.
You do. And while omega-6s themselves aren't the villain here, recent work, including studies in journals like eLife and Nature, links higher ratios, meaning significantly more omega-6 relative to omega-3 in the diet with worse outcomes. This has been observed in ecological and biomarker analyses for things like all-cause and cardiovascular mortality and even dementia.
Wow.
Now, this isn't about omega-6s being inherently bad. It's more about how our modern diet has shifted so dramatically. Historically, human diets had a much more balanced ratio, maybe closer to 1-to-1 or 2-to-1.
Right.
Today, with the industrialization of food, we often see ratios of 10-to-1 or even 20-to-1 in favor of omega-6. It's quite a shift.
So it's the imbalance that's potentially problematic.
That's what some research suggests. Now, it's important to clarify, these ratio studies aren't causal proof on their own. They show associations. But they do lead to a kind of sensible caution, I think. The smart play here isn't to suddenly start cutting out omega-6s, especially from otherwise healthy vegetable oils. Instead, the focus should probably be on how to raise your omega-3s.
How do you do that?
By actively incorporating foods like fatty fish, maybe twice a week, or daily plant-based sources such as flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts. That way, you achieve a better balance without demonizing beneficial oils.
This raises an important question then. Is the issue truly the omega-6 itself, or is it more about the lack of balance in our overall modern diet, which is often deficient in omega-3s? It sounds like we've maybe optimized for convenience and shelf life and unintentionally skewed our fatty acid ratios along the way.
That's a really good way to put it. The overall dietary pattern matters immensely.
Okay, so the Economist article largely treats seed oils as a single, generally healthy category, which on the surface is reassuring.
Mm-hmm. An interesting point to consider here, though, is that this might be an area where the article oversimplifies just a bit. Saying seed oils are fine doesn't automatically mean deep fry freely, you know?
Right.
We really need to emphasize that how you cook and which specific formulation of oil you use matters significantly, especially when you crank up the heat. Standard oils, the ones rich in linoleic acid, that's a type of polyunsaturated fatty acid, they tend to degrade faster at deep fry temperatures.
Okay. What happens when they degrade?
Well, this can generate more undesirable compounds called aldehydes. These are potentially harmful, linked to oxidative stress and inflammation, especially if you heat the oil for a long time or reuse it repeatedly.
So reusing chip shop oil isn't great then.
Probably not ideal, no. In contrast, high oleic variance oils, specifically bred or processed to be rich in oleic acid, which is a monounsaturated fatty acid, much more stable.
Like certain types of sunflower or canola?
Exactly. High oleic sunflower, high oleic canola or rapeseed oil, along with olive oil and peanut oil, they're generally more heat stable. They hold up better under heat. And a real-world wrinkle here is that in commercial kitchens, or even if you're deep frying at home, oil turnover and reuse are critical factors. Fresh observational studies, lab studies too, consistently show that aldehyde formation rises with time and temperature. This is way more relevant to, say, the continuous use in a fast food fryer than it is to a quick sauté in your pan at home.
Gotcha.
So the article's blanket reassurance, while well-intentioned perhaps, could have flagged these important distinctions for, optimal cooking practices.
That's incredibly insightful. So the broad statement about seed oils being healthy could have really benefited from pointing out these specific distinctions for how we actually use them in our kitchens every day, or what's used in our favorite restaurants. It's not just about the oil itself, but how it's treated. Very important difference. Now, the Economist article also mentions some popular alternatives that critics sometimes champion, like switching to beef tallow or the often bougie option of avocado oil.
Right, the alternatives. We absolutely need to challenge the idea that these are automatically healthier across the board. Let's look at tallow, for instance. It's mostly saturated fat.
Okay.
And consuming a lot of saturated fat tends to raise LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, relative to liquid vegetable oils. That goes directly against the heart health goals that the Economist article otherwise rightly defends and, the standard recommendations from the WHO and the American Heart Association.
So tallow maybe isn't the heart-healthy swap some claim it is. What about avocado oil?
Avocado oil can be great. It's rich in monounsaturated fats similar to olive oil, but, and this is a big but, retail quality control is notoriously spotty.
Really? How so?
Repeated surveys, particularly from UC Davis in California, have found a surprisingly high fraction of store-brand avocado oils tested were either rancid, meaning they'd gone bad, or adulterated mixed with cheaper oils.
Wow. So you might not even be getting what you pay for.
Exactly. That idea of bougie better doesn't always hold up to the reality of what you actually find on the supermarket shelf. You might be paying a premium for something that's not even what it claims to be, or is already compromised. It's a procurement issue.
So the moral of that story might be, don't automatically assume the more expensive or natural-sounding alternative is inherently better without looking at the full picture, including, well, quality control.
That's a fair assessment, yeah.
Okay. The Economist briefly touches on something else important. The idea that overconsumption of seed oils is often a consequence of an unhealthy diet overall, one full of fried or ultra-processed foods.
Yes, and the broader implication here is a critical distinction that perhaps The Economist could have emphasized even more strongly. It's really key. Many people attribute feeling better after cutting seed oils to the oils themselves. They say, I cut seed oils, I feel amazing.
You hear that all the time online.
All the time. But in reality, what they've almost certainly done, often without realizing it, is cut out a significant amount of ultra-processed foods from their diet at the same time. Think about it. When people consciously try to avoid seed oils, they often stop eating packaged snacks, fast food, commercial baked goods, frozen dinners.
Right, all the stuff where seed oils are common ingredients.
Exactly. And those foods aren't just vehicles for seed oils. They're often packed with excessive sugars, salt, refined carbs, additives, the whole package. That shift away from those kinds of foods is usually the real game changer for how people feel. There was that fascinating NIH metabolic ward randomized controlled trial published in Cell a few years back.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that one.
They gave people either an ultra-processed diet or an unprocessed diet, but carefully matched them for calories, fat, carbs, sugar, salt, fiber, all the main nutrients.
And what happened?
The people on the ultra-processed diet spontaneously ate about 500 calories more per day and gained weight. The group on the unprocessed diet lost weight, even though the diets were matched on paper. Yeah. It's a powerful indictment of the food environment and overall dietary patterns created by ultra-processing, not necessarily a specific oil molecule within those foods.
So what does this all mean then? It implies we shouldn't confuse the vehicle, the seed oils, with the passenger, the unhealthy dietary patterns that often accompany them. The oil might be present in unhealthy food, but it's not necessarily the primary driver of the unhealthiness itself.
That's a great way to frame it. And to add some crucial historical context here, something that actually strengthens The Economist's central thesis, industrial trans fats.
Ah, the old villain.
The real villain from the past, yes. These came from partially hydrogenated oils, which were used everywhere for decades. They contributed significantly to heart disease. Their near-complete removal in the U.S. and ongoing worldwide elimination efforts are a major public health success story. And it's a key reason why modern seed oils, which replaced many trans fats, look comparatively good today.
That's a vital perspective.
It really is. This historical context shows our understanding of fats and health has evolved, and the oils we consume today are vastly different from the problematic ones of decades past. We learned from that mistake, and the industry adapted, mostly for the better in this regard.
Okay. So pulling all these insights together, for you, the listener, what should you actually keep in mind about seed oils as you navigate your kitchen and your grocery store? What are the practical takeaways?
All right, let's try and break it down into a few clear, practical points based on our discussion. First, for everyday cooking, stick to things like olive oil, canola, or rapeseed oil. And if you can find them, the high oleic varieties are generally better for stability peanut oil or high oleic sunflower oil. These are all solid, heart-healthy choices.
Okay, what about butter or tallow?
You can certainly use butter or tallow for flavor accents, finishing a steak or something, but try not to make them your default fat for everything, particularly given their higher saturated fat content if heart health is a priority.
Makes sense. What about high heat?
Right. Second, when it comes to high heat cooking or frying, explicitly choose those high oleic oils we mentioned. They're more stable, and this is key. Don't repeatedly reuse oil. That significantly increases the formation of those aldehydes we talked about.
Okay, fresh oil more often.
Yes. And try to avoid heating oils to their smoking point, or when they start crackling vigorously, that's usually a sign they're breaking down.
Got it. What about the omega balance?
Third point. For overall balance in your diet, continue consuming healthy omega-6s from vegetable oils, nuts, and seeds, but actively increase your omega-3 intake. That means aiming for fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, or sardines, maybe twice weekly. Or if you're plant-based or don't eat fish, regularly incorporate things like flax seeds, chia seeds, and walnuts into your daily diet.
So boost the good stuff rather than just cutting things out.
Precisely. This strategy helps improve your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio without requiring you to slash otherwise healthy vegetable oils. It's about addition more than subtraction.
And lastly, the processing fear, hexane.
Right, finally, regarding those processing fears, particularly about hexane. Just be aware that tiny hexane residues are controlled to very low levels by modern refinement processes. They are strictly capped in the EU, as we discussed, and effectively driven near zero in practice elsewhere. If you personally want to entirely avoid solvents, maybe for peace of mind, you can absolutely choose expeller-pressed or extra virgin oils.
Okay.
But honestly, from a health risk standpoint, for most people, it's generally a rounding error. It's more a matter of personal preference than a critical health concern based on current evidence.
That's incredibly helpful. Really breaks it down. And maybe it'll leave you with a final thought to consider. If the demonization of seed oils often distracts us from the arguably bigger issues of ultra-processed foods and unbalanced overall diets, what other single-ingredient food debates might be missing the forest for the trees in our ongoing quest for health? Something to chew on. Thanks for listening. Follow us to stay updated with the latest insights on The Economist every day, and don't forget to like, comment, and share.